Welcome to this video on fine motor skills. You already know that big muscle development lays the foundation for small muscle development. Now we're going to zoom in, literally, on what's happening in children's hands, wrists, and fingers from birth to age 5. Fine motor skills are some of the trickiest for young children to master, and they're deeply connected to school readiness. Things like holding a pencil, using scissors, and eventually writing. Let's take a look at how this development unfolds. So what are fine motor skills? Fine motor skills involve the small muscles of the hands, wrists, and fingers. And I want to be honest with you, these are hard. They require muscular control, patience, judgment, and brain coordination, all working together at the same time. Before a child can develop fine motor skills, they need a solid gross motor base. The core muscles and shoulder muscles need to be stable before the hands and fingers can do precise work. It's a little like how you need a solid table before you can do careful detail work on top of it. The torso and the shoulder are the table, and the hands are the tools. Children go through 4 stages of fine motor development, and all 4 happen in the first year of life. Then the next 4 years are spent refining and building on those stages. By age 5, the goal is a child who can eat with a fork, use scissors, write letters, and dress themselves. It's quite a journey from a newborn who can only grasp by reflex. Let me walk you through the 4 stages quickly because they explain a lot about what you'll see in infant and toddler rooms. Stage 1 is whole arm movements. Babies will bat at things, swipe at things, and reach using their entire arm. They don't have any control over their wrist or fingers just yet. So think of a baby laying on their back on a mat with a mobile hanging over, and they're batting at it. Stage 2 is whole hand movements. This is the palmar grasp. The baby closes their whole hand around an object like a rattle. It's all 4 fingers and the palm working together without much involvement from the thumb just yet. Stage 3 is the beginning of those pincher movements, the pressing. The thumb and index finger press together and release, but the child isn't picking anything up with precision just yet. And stage 4 is the mature pincer grasp. The thumb and index finger coordinate to actually pick up a small object like a Cheerio or a puff, and this usually emerges around 9 to 12 months. Each stage is a prerequisite for the next. You can't skip stages, but you can create environments that give children the practice they need to move through them. Let's start with the earliest stage. In the first 8 months of life, fine motor development is all about getting the hands to do what the brain wants them to do, and that takes a lot of practice. In the first 1 to 3 months, babies are moving their arms in big symmetrical movements with both arms together. They may bring their hands to their mouth, and their hands are starting to relax and spend more time open rather than fisted. They're also beginning to track moving objects with their eyes, which is an important foundation for hand-eye coordination. From 3 to 6 months, the palmar grasp begins to dominate. Babies are raking objects toward themselves, usually with the thumb side of the hand. That's called the radial palmar grasp. And their eyes and hands are starting to work together in more coordinated ways. A baby reaching for a toy and successfully grasping it is a milestone worth celebrating. Between 6 and 8 months, babies are doing a lot. They're trying to pick up small objects, not always successfully, but the attempt is meaningful. They're banging toys on surfaces, transferring toys from one hand to the other, and developing voluntary release, which is actually a really big deal. Learning to let go of something on purpose is a separate skill from grasping. Think about when they drop their spoon on the floor over and over and over. What can you do? Offer rattles, squeeze toys, rings, and soft balls. Let babies mouth safe objects. That is how they learn about the world. place interesting objects just within reach, so babies have to stretch and work a little bit, and resist the urge to place things directly in the baby's hands until they're developmentally ready to grasp and release on their own, which is usually around 3 months. Before we move into the toddler years, I want to talk about what can get in the way of fine motor development during the first year, because there are things that you can actually influence. The first barrier is limited exposure. Caregivers who are nervous about small objects or messes may unintentionally restrict the very experiences babies need. Safe exploration is the point, not just keeping things tidy. The second barrier is when adults or older siblings do too much for a child. When a child is learning to feed themselves and someone swoops in and does it faster, the child loses that practice opportunity. Messy eating is fine motor practice. It's worth the extra napkins. The third one is unaddressed vision issues. A child who can't see clearly will have trouble reaching for and manipulating objects. Ask families whether their child has had a vision check, especially if you notice a child consistently missing objects they are reaching for. And fourth, limited tummy time. Tummy time matters for gross motor skills, but it also matters for fine motor too, because tummy time builds the upper body strength that the hands eventually depend on. The toddler years are where fine motor skills really start to look like something recognizable. Toddlers are scribbling, they're stacking, they're snipping with scissors, and starting to get themselves dressed, or trying to anyway. By age 2, most toddlers can grasp a crayon between their thumb and fingers rather than the whole fist, though the fist grip is still common and totally normal at this age. They're imitating vertical lines and circles when drawing. They can build a tower of about 6 blocks. They're turning pages in a book, and they're managing a spoon or fork with some success, drinking from a cup, and helping with basic dressing tasks like pulling off socks and finding armholes. By age 3, the skills will refine noticeably. The crayon is held more deliberately between thumb and fingers. Children are copying shapes, horizontal and vertical lines, circles, and beginning to imitate a cross. They're starting to use scissors along a straight line with supervision. And zippers are coming into range, as are large buttons. And many 3-year-olds can remove their pants independently and put on a front opening shirt. Every one of these skills represents dozens, sometimes hundreds, of practice attempts. Your patience with the process is as important as the materials you provide. Similar to gross motor development, there are signs in fine motor development that are worth paying attention to. If a child consistently gives up easily on fine motor tasks or consistently avoids them altogether, drawing puzzles or building, that is worth noting. Children naturally avoid what's hard for them. If avoidance is persistent, it may signal that a task is too difficult or that there's a developmental concern. Sensory avoidance, not wanting to touch certain textures or not wanting to do messy activities, can also indicate sensory processing differences that an occupational therapist could help with. Mouthing objects beyond 18 to 24 months is another red flag, and strongly favoring one hand very early before age 2 can sometimes indicate a concern on the other side of the body. Your observations, shared carefully and warmly with families, can be the beginning of getting the child the support they need. Remember, we are not diagnosticians, so always reach out for support. Now let's talk about preschoolers, ages 3 to 5. This is the stage where fine motor skills really start preparing children for school. Drawing, cutting, writing letters, getting dressed, it all comes into focus here. By age 4, Children have typically established a hand preference, though remember, handedness usually settles between the ages of 3 and 5, so don't be concerned if a 4-year-old still switches hands sometimes. 4-year-olds are using wrist movement to guide a pencil, copying a cross shape, tracing squares and triangles, coloring within lines, and drawing a person with recognizable body parts. They're cutting out simple shapes, managing jacket zippers, and attempting smaller buttons. By age 5, the pencil grip matures into what we call a tripod grasp. Thumb, index finger, and middle finger controlling the pencil with the pinky and ring finger folded under for support. Now, finger movement, not just wrist movement, is directing the pencil. 5-year-olds are copying letters, beginning to tie knots, though full shoelace tying usually comes by about age 6, and they can dress and undress typically without help. By age 5, most children have the coordination to eat peas with a fork, use scissors to cut collage materials, hold and turn pages of a book, and play a kazoo. That's a long way from the newborn who could only hold a rattle by reflex. Now let's talk about what you can do, because the good news is that fine motor development happens naturally through rich play environments. No worksheets, no drills. Provide open-ended materials, clay, crayons, Legos, beads, water tables, sand. These invite exploration and naturally build small muscle skills. Children who play with modeling clay or Play-Doh are strengthening the exact muscles they'll use to write. Let the children lead. One of the most important things you can do is let children choose the tools that match their skill level. If you're making a collage and one child isn't ready for scissors yet, let them tear the paper. Tearing paper is excellent fine motor practice, and it lets the child participate fully without the frustration of a tool they can't manage yet. Use vertical surfaces. When children draw on paper that is taped to the wall or use an easel, they develop the muscles in their wrists, hands, and the backs of their hands differently than when they're drawing lying flat. This builds exactly the strength that is needed for writing. Embed fine motor practice in every area of your setting. Tweezers in the science center, sewing cards in the math area, lacing activities and dramatic play, self-help frames for buttons and zippers. Fine motor skills aren't just for art time, they belong everywhere. Model, but don't take over. Show a child how to hold scissors or use a spoon, and then hand it back. Resist doing it for them, even when it would be faster. Every practice attempt matters. I want to end with something practical that I think is the most important thing you can carry with you from this video. Children with fine motor delays will avoid the things that are hardest for them. This is not stubbornness. It is a completely human response to difficulty and frustration. Your job is to keep reintroducing materials and skills in low-pressure, playful ways. Turning a task into a game changes everything. A child who refuses to practice cutting might happily rescue small paper animals from the paper by cutting around them. Recognize the difference between not interested today and not yet developmentally ready. Both call for patience and encouragement, not pressure. Celebrate small gains and document them. A child who could not hold a crayon independently last month and now makes a mark is making real progress. Your brief, consistent notes about what you observe are valuable for the family and, if needed, for a referral. And one more thing. You may be the first adult who notices a child needs additional support. Early intervention is most effective when it begins early, ideally before the age of 3, but meaningful at any age. Your observations matter. As we close, here's what I hope you'll hold on to. Fine motor development moves through 4 predictable stages. from whole arm movements to precise pincer grasps. But every child moves through those stages on their own timeline. Your job is to support the journey, not rush the destination. Your environment is a fine motor gym. Every material in every learning center is an opportunity. Think intentionally about what you are placing on those shelves and how you set it up. Watch for red flags, consistent avoidance, strongly favoring one hand before the age of 2, mouthing beyond 18 months, and share what you observe with families in a warm and supportive way. Patience and persistence are your most important tools. Children engage when they feel safe, encouraged, and capable. By the age of 5, the goal is not perfection. It's a child who has had a rich, varied, joyful experience that has prepared them for the next stage of learning. That is what you are building toward every single day.